I did it! I successfully completed 2.5, technically, hours of work. I did an extra 30 minutes just to make sure I'd earned it. I'm so pleased. I can't believe it took just you telling me, like, oh, you can only... I like that you literally just went, you can only watch one if you do an hour of work. And I went, and I'm so fucking obedient that I just went, fine. It worked. So there we go. Anyway, my friends are freaking out about grades and shit. Oh, hello. There's a person. The person's gone. It always scares the shit out of me when someone shows up. Because I'm like, whoa, okay, there's a human being watching me. That's an odd thing to do. Why are you doing that? Anyway, I am so stoked to be listening to this because honestly, I'm so excited. I feel like I've earned this. You know what I mean? I'm so excited. My friends are now trying to figure out how to God, I don't even know. Trying to like something. I don't know, bro. They're trying to figure something out, and I don't really care for it. So I'm personally, I'm just gonna listen to my stuff. So last time we heard from our girl Gertrude. Ayo, our girl Gertrude, back when she was alive and well. Sasha is definitely not Sasha anymore, and I'm absolutely horrified by it. Additionally, I'm finding it harder and harder to look at fan art of this without potentially spoiling it for myself. Now, obviously, I'm gaslighting myself into going, everything that's happening in any of this fan art isn't real. It's hypothetical. It's all made up. It's not canon, right? And that way I hopefully will still be surprised when shit happens. But also it's unlikely that any of that shit's going to happen during a time that I will remember those random bits of fan art. Regardless, it's annoying because I'm already in love with the show and I'm trying really hard to not spoil it for myself. Oh yeah, also my ears are naked right now. Look, there's nothing in them. It's just flesh holes. I probably scare off that random person. I wonder if it's the same person as last time. That would be really funny if it was. Anyway, I thought I would try on, before we start, I thought I'd try on some white ones because I've never actually worn white gauges. There's a little bit of spare rubber that's not making them look very good. So I'm just gonna very carefully cut that off. I took a little bit too much there, but that's fine. That's fine. No one needs to know. Okay. Yeah, let's try these on. Because I've always had black ones. I've always had the same pair of black gauges, black tunnels. Even that's what these are called. They're called tunnels. That is so weird. That looks so. And then I put my little hoop in. Hope I didn't just drop something. No, I didn't. We're fine. That looks so weird. I don't know how I feel about that. Let's try the clear one with, we'll try it in this ear. Let's try the clear one with white speckles. That's kind of cool. Quite like that. Like this. I don't hate that. I think the white's too stark. It's kind of unsettling me. I can't explain it. It's too stark for me. But I don't mind these. I don't mind this one. That's quite nice. Oh, I'm also going to tell you the good news. Even though you're probably still working very hard on your very difficult looking things. I did it! 2.5 hours, baby! I'm a literal genius. My intelligence knows no bounds. By which I mean, I think you Pavlovianed me into working. Thank you. Stream time, stream time, stream time, stream time, stream time, stream time, stream time. There, now you know that I'm excited. So, we'll go with these for a little while. I've got a feeling they're going to discolor though, because they're clear. So I've got a feeling they'll discolor with, like, you know, my as if, like, when my ears get dirty, because I mean, anyone who's got healed piercings knows this. You get like crust around the piercing. It's not like because anything's wrong with it. It's just like a buildup of skin and sweat and stuff. It just kind of builds up around your piercing. And you get the same thing with tunnels, except it's more like dry skin underneath the rubber from where it's not received oxygen. It's kind of like shedding skin. If the next time I decide to clean my ears, I'll try and show you what I mean. It's not a bad thing. It's a little gross, but it's not bad. It's kind of what's meant to happen. Just keeps the skin fresh, I guess. I don't fucking know. I don't know why it does it. It just does, and you learn to accept the fact that your ears are always going to have weird shit coming out of them. Anyway, I don't mind the. I will say, I don't know if it feels less prominent, which is kind of sad. But I can't be bothered to change them now, so we'll stick with this color today. Maybe tomorrow, maybe I can just change them all the time. Now that I have multiple piercings, this is an option for me. How very exciting. Right. So now that you are aware of the fact that I'm streaming, I have done enough work to justify streaming, and I have caught you up with where we last were, as if you don't know. We can continue. The next one's called Blood Pack. Do I want to know? I still want to know what the fuck is going on with that spider. Okay, I will not rest until I understand that. I will not rest well until I understand why that, like, this worm, this spider thing seems to be keeping the fucking archive going. It seems very counterintuitive. I should probably go fill up my water bottle, actually. I haven't eaten either, but I'm not hungry. Actually, I did eat. I had some soup. I had like a cup of soup. That counts, right? Anyway, enjoy an empty stream for a minute. I'm going to go fill up my water bottle. Also, there's black mold in it. Adds extra flavor. Very excited. I lost my weird pipe cleaner thing that cleans the inside of water bottles. So I just went, but I need a cotton bud down there and hope for the best. Clean out the whole weather panel. Honestly, I'm just gonna have to accept my fate. Honestly, I could probably do with the extra distance. Okay. Okay. I'm back. Do I need the toilet? Yes, I do. Fucking hell. I'll be back. I used to have a really cute pair of panda like headbands that I got from China when I went to the panda enclosure place. I do not know where they are. All right, I got my snacks, I got my Coke, I got my water. Hydration is important, especially when dealing with this absolute fucking nightmare. Anyway, we can start now. I'm going to add to the title. Starts at when is it? At 15. Starts at 15 to 1500. There we go. That way you don't waste 15 minutes of your time listening to me be a twat. I mean, you can if you want. Up to you. But, you know, that's your decision. Because most of it is spent with me not in front of the camera. Regardless, doesn't matter. Blood bag. Let's go.
Are your team struggling to...
Do you know, I've never been more excited to hear those ads. I was really hoping it was going to go AI, and I'd be like, oh, hi, AI. I've missed you.
The Magnus Episode 45. Blood Bag.
Blood bag. I fucking love Jonathan, man. And I love Martin. And I love them. And I'm so... I really hope that Sasha will end up okay. Because I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, Sasha's just dead. And also, there's no way that I figured that out too quickly. Because I definitely figured that out, like, before...
Statement of Thomas Neal regarding his experiences working in malarial research during the spring of 2010. Original statement given February the 9th, 2011.
Ooh, we're dealing with
Audio recording by
mosquitoes.
Jonathan Sims, head archivist of the Magnus
Head
Institute.
fucking
London.
archivist.
Statement begins.
He doesn't need to explain himself
I
to
hope
you.
you
He's
forgive
head
the
fucking
handwriting.
archivist.
The shaking has gotten better over the last few months, but it's still quite hard to read. Also, my therapist has recently changed up my medication, so if I get a bit muddled, that's why. Just to be clear, my medication and treatment have been in response to the events I'm describing here. I was not taking any drugs before or during the event.
That is actually very good to know, because otherwise Jonathan would
I
rule
only
you out
started my treatment
immediately.
course after Neil's death.
Who the fuck is
I've been
Neil?
working as a research assistant for about 6 years now. Anyone who tries to sell you the career with promises of money, fulfillment, or grand discoveries is a liar. The work is long and repetitive. The discoveries will be credited to the fellows, at least until they're disproved or irrelevant 5 years down the line. The money is, the money is actually not too bad. At least not until the grant dries up halfway through the project.
Oh.
I guess what I mean to say is that when I finally managed to get on a project doing something I really believed in, I was prepared to overlook a lot.
Right.
It was malaria research at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine.
Okay.
I was working under Dr. Neil Thompson. I'm pretty sure he hired me just because of how similar our names are. Thomas Neal and Neil Thompson.
That is actually
There was always
really
a little
funny.
moment of confusion whenever anyone asked for Neil. I think he got a kick out of it.
Honestly, I would.
That's the sort of person he was. Not mean-spirited or nasty. He just liked a bit of harmless chaos now and again.
Who
Balanced
doesn't?
out his precision in the lab, I suppose.
Neil sounds like
Because
a
in there he
right
was the sort of
legend.
rigorous, meticulous scientist I didn't think existed outside of fictional medical dramas. Put it like this. He wore a white lab coat and it was always immaculate. I don't know if you realize how genuinely impressive that is working in a lab, especially given as our work was messy. Very messy.
I bet it was.
We weren't working on malaria directly, you understand. Our work was on the Anopheline mosquitoes themselves. Transmission capable, but not infected. Though you'd hardly know by the reaction if one got loose. We're talking panicked, fleeing, lockdown and trained staff coming in to kill the thing. I always used to think that level of caution was ridiculous given our mozzies didn't actually have malaria. Not so much anymore.
Jesus Christ, what the fuck did the mosquitoes do to you?
A sort of blood substitute, a combination of the sugars and proteins that the mozzies need to survive, but one that was more enticing than a human full of blood.
I like that they call it
mozzies as well. The idea was to
well.
create a lure of sorts, which would keep the mosquitoes concentrated away from people and could potentially be used to poison them.
That's
though
pretty
that
good.
bit was some ways in the future.
That's a pretty
At this
fair,
point, most
pretty
of the
good idea.
research was spent trying to perfect the taste of the thing, for lack of a better term.
The taste.
The smell was also a big factor, as we needed the mozzies to choose it as a source of protein over a human.
Right.
And as it progressed, it turned out that the texture and composition of the feeding bag itself helped attract them. So it ended up getting more and more like human skin.
Oh,
The
that's
bags
fun.
even had little bits of human hair embedded into them,
Oh, that's
which
fun.
made the whole thing several shades too grotesque for me.
That's
but the mozzies
so
went
fun.
mad for it.
That's
And
really
as far as
fun.
Neil was concerned, that's all that mattered. After about 6 months, we had pretty much perfected it, to be honest. We had a lure bag that the mozzies preferred over a human sample in 98% of cases, in which they consistently demonstrated a willingness to return to over alternatives. The issue was the cost. Our synthesized blood substitute, which we liked to call hemoglobish, was simply not cheap enough for mass production, especially considering the bag requirements.
Hang on. Can we take a minute to appreciate the genius of that? Hemoglobish. There is no better name for fake blood than hemoglobish. Like, ish, you know. Brilliant. Sorry. I know you're probably telling me something really traumatic right now, Thomas, but that was fucking hilarious. Thank you. Anyway, was simply not cheap enough for mass production, especially
as we were dealing in prevention rather than cure. We were always going to be compared to the cost effectiveness of just buying a boatload of mosquito nets. And that wasn't going to be a comparison where we came out on top. We kept going, though, trying to recreate the effect with cheaper, more easily available materials.
Okay.
And that was when Neil first started muttering darkly about funding.
Oh.
Here's where I should probably say a bit about Neil's syringe. Now,
Syringe?
our Dr. Thompson claimed to be descended from the 19th century physician John Snow, a great-great-nephew or a great-great-great-grandson or something like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much you know about epidemiology in the 1850s, and it's
very
a
little.
common enough name. But Snow was pivotal in laying the groundwork for the germ theory of disease transmission and is widely credited with helping end the cholera outbreak of 1854.
Oh.
I only bring this up because Neil had, well, I suppose you could call it something of a totem. It was an old Victorian syringe, which he claimed had belonged to this illustrious ancestor of his. I don't know if it was true or not, but Neil certainly treated the thing like a relic.
It's the thought
He
that
kept
matters.
it in excellent condition, with glass shining and brass polished, and would carry it around in a small case tucked into his lab coat pocket. Whenever he was called upon to do any calculations or look over results, his hand would slip into that pocket, and he'd gently clutch that case.
That's
so you can imagine that it came as something of a surprise when he came to me and asked for my help in selling it. Now, according to Neil, our project's grant money had run out, and without alternative sources of funding, we weren't going to be able to continue the work. I'm not sure how much I believed him, as the word around the lab was Neil had something of a gambling habit.
Ooh.
In fairness to him, I'd heard all sorts of baseless gossip flying around about everybody, and honestly don't know how the money worked for our project. I just signed the contract and took the paychecks. It never occurred to me to investigate our funding myself, so he might have been telling the truth. He might have been trying to save the project. It didn't really matter, as by this point Neil and I were quite close, so if he asked me to do him a favour, I wasn't exactly going to refuse.
Oh, good boy.
When I say he asked for my help selling it, that's not exactly accurate. He'd already found a buyer, some antiques dealer, who Neil said had offered him 6 figures for it. That sounded mad to me. I mean, it was a valuable trinket, sure, but that's all that it was. Neil didn't seem entirely convinced the guy was on the level either, which was why he asked me to come along. I'm a big guy, 6'7", 14.5 stone, so I can cut a pretty intimidating figure if I need to.
You're damn right you do, you fucking giant. Jesus, the hell are you eating?
That's what Neil wanted me to do. Just be there, have his back while he went to meet this guy, so he'd know not to try anything. I don't remember the name, I'm afraid, but he was foreign. Indonesian, I think, or Samoan.
Did it happen to be Mikhail
I expected the meeting to
Salisa?
be after dark in some dingy dockyard, but as it turned out, they'd arranged to meet at the Three Greyhounds pub in Soho the following afternoon.
Oh,
I
really?
wanted to dress to intimidate, but I didn't really have any appropriate clothes, so I just wore a suit. As it turned out, I needn't have bothered. This overly generous antiques dealer was almost as big as I was, and Unlike me, he looked like he could handle himself.
Yikes.
He didn't even look at me when he entered the pub.
Oh, that's not
Almost deserted at that time on a Tuesday afternoon. He sat opposite Neil, while I stood awkwardly just outside their booth. They talked hurriedly and quietly to each other, and I couldn't make out many of the words, though it seemed like they were just discussing the price for the syringe. Eventually, I saw a couple of briefcases exchange hands, and that was it. The dealer got up and walked out, holding a suitcase that seemed much lighter than the one he had come in with. Neil gave me a relieved nod and headed back to the lab with his own suitcase, that I can only assume was full of cash.
Let's fucking hope so.
This is when things started to go wrong.
Oh, great.
When things started to get weird.
Ah.
I don't know if it had anything to do with Neil selling that syringe. I mean, I don't know how it could have, but that's when the trouble started. The first thing I noticed was the heat. Now, mozzies need to be kept at a temperature of around 23 to 24 degrees Celsius, which might not sound too hot, but at this point it was late May and we were starting to head towards summer. So on a sunny day, the room where we kept the cages felt stifling.
I bet it fucking did.
As the days wore on, the heat started to seep out into the rest of the lab until we were all coated with sweat for most of the day.
Oh, I hate
We
that.
called the building manager to get the heating checked, and he told us everything was working fine. He even agreed to turn on the air conditioning for us, but it made no difference.
Oh.
The lab was warm and humid. Everything felt sticky. And I took to bringing in a change of shirt when I left at the end of the day. Luckily, none of the chemicals we were mixing into the faux blood bags were particularly temperature sensitive. Oh, God knows how much work we might have lost.
Yeah,
But that was unpleasant, of course, but there was no real evidence of it being paranormal. No, that didn't come until a couple of weeks later. The mozzies started acting unusually.
Oh, great.
We kept them in metal mesh cages so they're viewable at all times. There's a hole in the front which is lined with gauze that can be gathered up to make a seal or allow you access to the cage. Normally they're happy enough to flit about their cages. But then, without warning, they stopped. They landed on the cage and just stayed there. They were distributed almost completely evenly over the inside, to the point where it almost looked regimented.
That's so weird.
And then they would stay like that for hours. It was unsettling, and more than once the researchers retrieved some for testing, looking for any change that might have resulted in this altered behavior, but everything came back normal.
The fuck is Neil in all
Sometimes,
this?
though, when I was working late, I'd look into that room, and I swear I would see a mass of mosquitoes in each cage, crowded in a thick clump around the gauze covering the entrance. I should have told somebody.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't know what I was seeing.
You were seeing a bunch of fucking weird-ass
The
mozzies trying to get
towards
out.
The fake blood bags changed as well. Instead of meandering round, landing, feeding, flying off, feeding again, a few times. Now, as soon as the bag was placed inside, every mozzie in there would descend on it immediately, all at once.
Oh, fuck.
Until the bag was completely covered in needle mouths and flitting wings.
Oh, God.
It genuinely started to scare me.
I would be fucking scared
What
too.
really
That's
scared me,
psychotic.
though, and everyone else on the team, was what came out of the blood bag afterwards. Shortly after they began exhibiting this behavior, one of the other research assistants, George Larson, was retrieving one of the empty bags and returning it for disposal in the lab. And he stumbled, and it fell to the floor. When it hit the ground with a moist thud, it became immediately clear that the bag was not as empty as it had first appeared. The blood substitute, the hemoglobish, was a clear, syrupy orange, almost like dark honey, but slightly thinner. What oozed out of the bag now was a deep, cloudy red. At this point, nobody objected to calling in a biohazard. They took samples of the substance and put us through a basic decontamination, and then I went home. Odd to think now that my thoughts back then were full more of curiosity than of fear. The tests came back and were as alarming as they were impossible.
Don't tell
It
me.
was blood.
Oh my God, of course it fucking
Real
was.
blood. O negative and infected with malaria. Not just malaria though, but yellow fever, hepatitis B, and signs of cholera. There were other substances in the sample as well.
Excuse
that
me?
They were unable to identify.
Oh, so diseases
were
we
all
don't
told
know
that we were
about.
to be
Great.
quarantined immediately and that our project was shut down until further notice.
I'm not bloody surprised.
I remember
Jesus.
standing there in the lab as they said this. I heard a strangled cry from behind me and turned around to see Neil, shaking his head over and over, his face a mask of rage and hatred. He wasn't looking at the people who had come to quarantine us, though. No, he was looking at the room full of mosquitoes, as though they had planned this, as though it was purely through their malicious intent that he was watching his career burn to nothing. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed a fire extinguisher and ran into the mosquito room. God knows what he was hoping to achieve.
Sorry, I got distracted by you messaging me, so this is all your fault. So, Jesus.
I heard a strangled cry, real signs of immediately, and that our project was shut down until further notice. I remember standing there in the lab as they said this. I heard a strangled cry from behind me and turned around to see Neil, shaking his head over and over, his face a mask of rage and hatred. He wasn't looking at the people who had come to quarantine us, though. No, he was looking at the room full of mosquitoes, as though they had planned this, as though it was purely through their malicious intent that he was watching his career burn to nothing. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed a fire extinguisher and ran into the mosquito room. God knows what he was hoping to achieve. Spray a few cages to death in some petty act of revenge, maybe?
Honestly, I would.
He never got the chance.
Ooh.
As he fumbled with the release mechanism, a tremendous buzzing filled the air. And suddenly I realized what they had been doing clustered around the gauze those nights. There was no time to pull Neil out, so I did the only thing I could. I shut the door. Thousands of mosquitoes erupted from those cages, far more, I thought, than we could possibly have had on site. There was no way to count them, though, as they swarmed onto poor Neil, first his hands and his face, then beneath his clothes, until there was no part of him not covered with the things. He swatted at them, killing some, but there were just too many.
Yeah, how do you do?
After a few seconds, it was clear he was going into shock. He tried to scream, but that just gave them more places to drink from.
Oh, that's so gross!
When I turned away, there hadn't been a single drop of blood spilled, but we all knew that Dr. Neil Thomas was dead. I don't remember much after that. There was a lot of shouting and a lot of noise, then tests, confused and worried academics asking me questions that, of course, I couldn't answer. It was almost a month before the world was in focus again.
That's
The
crazy.
faculty have been all right to me, actually, so I should probably be thankful. They were so keen to get this swept neatly under the rug that they just let me go. With such a glowing reference that I just walked into a lab tech position at King's College.
That's good,
It's
I
mostly
guess.
helping students, but that's all right. I think I'm done with research. Statement ends.
I would be too, honestly.
Can't stand mosquitoes. Horrible things. Any solution to the issue of malaria that doesn't concentrate on wiping them out is not one that I have much time for. Still, this grotesque account doesn't give us many leads to follow. Obviously, there's the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine itself, but Tim's investigation yielded little significant information. Apparently, those staff who've been around long enough to remember the event either didn't know the details or have been well briefed to keep their mouths shut. Aside from the fact that Dr. Neil Thomas died in a lab accident on the 30th May 2010, there's little more to be found. Sasha managed to get a copy of the inquest report, which is infuriatingly vague, but does list the cause of death as blood loss, and the official verdict as death by misadventure. I don't think there can be much doubt that the antiques dealer is the curious Mr. Salesa.
Mm-hmm.
He's now turned up enough that I can no longer write it off as a coincidence, and have been having a word with Rosie about whether we can make contact with him. Apparently he hasn't been seen for almost 2 years now, with rumours in the trade running to everything from he had a quiet retirement to he's trying to dodge a jail sentence, or even he was shot dead in Colombia for stealing a priceless artifact from a drug lord. Whatever the reason, it doesn't look like he'll be answering questions anytime soon.
Oh, we'll get
Though
him
I have
eventually.
urged
It's
Rosie
fine.
to keep trying.
Yeah, go on, Rosie.
Aside from that, there's little more we can do with this statement. Mr. Neil himself passed away last year.
Oh.
Martin hasn't been able to get a hold of the official cause of death, but judging by the number of antibiotics the police report list as being at his home at the time, it must have been something very nasty indeed. End recording.
Supplement time.
Supplemental. I've been doing some digging into Tim, watching him. He's certainly doing his job far better than I'd have expected given his recent experiences.
So are
There's
you
just
though,
one
mate.
thing I don't understand.
Okay.
Why is he working for the Institute? A first in anthropology from Trinity College, 5 successful years spent climbing the ladder at a major publishing house, and then out of the blue he decides to come work for us. Why? I can't find any other indication of an interest in the paranormal, nothing to indicate this area of study appealed to him. Why stay after everything that happened with Prentice? Is it just loyalty, or could it be something? Hey, I just wanted to check if you wanted a cup of tea. Sorry, are you recording? I thought you were done for the day. I am. It's, Why do you have pictures of Tim? It's a performance review thing, going over some files for it. That looks like a picture of his confidential files that you, legally, you shouldn't really be looking at them. Please leave. Mine. Did you want that tea? No. Thank you, Mom.
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck, that's so funny. Martin is so fucking wholesome. I now understand. I keep saying things about Martin and his therapeutic tea. I get it now. Is he going to continuously offer him cups of tea? That's kind of sweet. That's so fucking cute. Also, can we appreciate the change from tired, bored archivist to slightly insane conspiracy theorist between the statement and the supplement? It's fucking hilarious. He goes, supplement. I've been looking into Tim. Why is he here? What does he want? And the actual thing is like, Thomas must have been particularly nasty. Sounds so chill, and then just goes completely feral in the supplement, which is hilarious. I am curious though. I mean, I don't think that Tim killed Gertrude, because why? But I suppose that is a decent question. Like, why would you stay? Like, if you were super into the paranormal, I get why you would stay, because you've just received significant evidence that the paranormal is real. And that's exciting. But if you don't care about the paranormal and you're doing this job, just, I don't know, maybe because it's a decent job, you like archiving things, you're into history or something, so archiving seems like a pretty decent job, and then this shit happens, I leave probably, you know. So I do get his like curiosity, but I don't think that that's suspicion for murder. And when Martin was like, "Is that a picture of his house?" and Johnson's like, "It's very confidential. Leave, please." And Johnson's like, "Why do you have pictures of Tim's house?" Martin is so cute. I love him.
I need to find a better place to do these recordings. And supplemental.
All right. Can we? I'm sorry. I really want to listen to that again.
Institute. A first in anthropology from Trinity College, 5 successful years spent climbing the ladder at a major publishing house, and then out of the blue, he decides to come work for us. Why? I can't find any other indication of an interest in the paranormal, nothing to indicate this area of study appealed to him. Why stay after everything that happened with Prentice? Is it just loyalty, or could it be something? Hey, I just wanted to check if you wanted a cup of tea. Sorry, are you recording? I thought you were done for the day. I am. It's, Why do you have pictures of Tim? It's a performance review thing, going over some files for it. That looks like a picture of his confidential files that you, legally, you shouldn't really be looking at them. Please leave. Martin. Did you want that tea? No. Thank you.
Did you want that tea? At the end. Also, the fact that Martin is just so trusting. Like, he was like, "Oh, okay." Did not question it any further. Most people would be like, what the fuck does his house have to do with a performance review? But he was like, oh no, it's John. It's John. Of course, he's got a good reason. It's fine. I'll go get him some tea maybe if he wants it. Brilliant. All right.
AI network might clips a football of rust.
Episode 46, Literary Heights. Ooh, did you hear that? Probably not over the bloody music.
Rusty Quill presents the Magnus Archives. Episode 46, Literary Heights.
I don't have the lungs for that.
Statement of Herbert Knox regarding a repeat customer to his bookshop in Chichester. Original statement given December 21st, 1998.
Jonathan
Audio
does
recording
a
by
really,
Jonathan Sims, head archivist of the Magnus Institute.
he does a
London.
really good job of pretending to be
begins.
sane. I have to say, I'm
It's hard to know
impressed.
exactly where to begin when explaining to you what exactly it was that I experienced. There were many things that happened, each strange and inexplicable in and of itself, but I'll be damned if I can see how they connect to each other, except that they all ended up involving the same student from the university.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Michael Crew, though he normally went by Mike, at least to me. I'm not usually one to pay much attention to the students that come into my shop, especially during the start of a new school year. I have something of a soft spot for the antique when it comes to my furnishings, and that, combined with the age of my stock, means that when new students arrive at the university, they generally regard the discovery of Lion Street books as something of a curiosity. I've heard more than one comparison to that shop in Stephen King's Needful Things, or whatever it was called. Anyway, as I deal mostly in rare books and antiquities, they generally get one look at the prices and suddenly their interest dries up. Of course, there are always a couple of rich kids whose parents weren't able to buy their way into Oxbridge, so it's not a complete waste. So it's rare that I have any cause to remember the face of my student customers. But Mike struck me the moment he walked into my shop. This would have been last September. I don't remember the exact date, though I'm sure if I looked up my receipts I could tell you. He was short, barely over 5 feet, and very thin. Underfed, I remember thinking. It hadn't yet turned cold, but he wore a high-collared coat and a thick scarf wrapped around his neck.
I like a
Now
good
I'm
scarf.
getting on in years, and much as I love my shop, the building can get a bit drafty come autumn, so I generally have the heating up quite high. It was clearly enough for him to become uncomfortable wrapped up like that, and he removed the scarf to reveal a branching pattern of white scar tissue arcing up the side of his neck. That was interesting, certainly, but it wasn't what actually caught my eye.
Sounds pretty.
No, what struck me most was that rather than wonder or curiosity, as I would see in the faces of the other students who found their way into Lion Street books, this young man began scanning the shelves with an expression that seemed more like impatience. He was clearly looking for something specific, so after a few minutes I asked him if I could help. Without looking up, he said he was after a copy of de Plancy's Dictionnaire Infernal, the older the better. I only had a 1908 translation in stock, but I said I would make inquiries if he wished for an older edition. He didn't reply to this, nor to my casual inquiry as to whether he was studying demonology or the occult. He took it to my desk to buy it, and I started rooting around for the credit card machine when I smelled the strangest thing. It was like just before a storm breaks, that sharp smell in the air, but looking outside, the sky was clear and the sun was shining.
Wait!
Mike seemed to smell it too, and he
Wait!
was very still.
Wait. Michael Crew. Hang on. I've made a connection, and I need to investigate it further. I told myself I wouldn't look up any more stuff after the incident that we will not discuss. But this is a transcript, so it's different. Mad for transcript. Because he talked about his friend who... Yes! Michael Crew! Oh my god, I can't believe... I knew that sounded familiar. I'm so proud of myself that I connected that line. I wonder he's fucking freaking out at the smell of the lightning thing. I would freak out too. Links. Okay. It's another one from episode 4. Michael Crew, episode 46. There we go. Beautiful. Amazing. I still want to know where the tape is. What did Sasha do? I know why Sasha got rid of the tape, because it revealed that Sasha is not Sasha anymore. But I want to know what it did to the tapes. You know, I want to know. I want to know. Anyway.
He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wad of cash. He quickly counted it out, grabbed the book, and was through the door before I even had a chance to ring him up a receipt. The smell faded as soon as he was out of sight. I didn't know his name at that point, but it was far from the last time I saw him. He became something of a regular. Maybe once every 3 weeks or so he'd come in and check any new stock I had. He was interested in spiritualism, history of witchcraft, anything mystical, especially from before 1850.
Why before
a few books
1850?
on meteorology, especially pre-Enlightenment, and once a book on the work of Gottfried Leibniz, though I don't remember the title. I have no idea where he was getting his money, but he had a lot of it. He was able to pay 5 figures for a copy of a 1559 printing of the Malleus Maleficarum without breaking a sweat. At some point I learned his name. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have described him as a friend or even close, but over the last year he'd easily been my most regular customer.
That's fair.
That wasn't the only time I smelled that acrid tang in the air, though. Sometimes when he was in there, it would come again all at once. It never seemed to be coming from Mike, exactly. But when he was around, the smell would just suddenly be there. It was the only time I would ever smell it inside, and when I did, Mike would just stop whatever he was doing and leave immediately. He wouldn't run.
I wonder why.
He'd just leave. There was another thing, too.
Oh.
Whenever he was in, the light bulbs in my shop would burn brighter.
He got that
I
electricity in
didn't
him,
even
bro.
realize this until he'd been coming for several months, as it was usually in daylight when he went shopping.
Can
But
you
when
hear
winter
that?
made its presence known, his late afternoon visits began to take place after dark.
Can you
and
hear
I
that?
noticed that whenever he came in,
That like
the shop
buzz.
got brighter. The bulbs would start to buzz very softly, and the elements within them would glow with a surprising intensity. There was this strange electric crackling, and once I even got a shock when I turned a lamp on. I never brought it up with Mike, though. I don't even know how I would have gone about bringing it up. It was February when I got the Leitner book. I'd heard of him before,
thank
of
God.
course, though I'd never met the man. The rare book trade is a comparatively small world, at least within the UK, and his name would often come up whenever I was gossiping with my peers. Sometimes it was about which valuable piece he'd snatched for a fraction of its true value, or the ridiculous amounts he'd paid for a book that everyone else was sure was a fake. Occasionally there were more unsavory rumors about his personal life. So, even though I'd never personally made his acquaintance, I was well aware of Jürgen Leitner and his collection.
Oh.
And when he disappeared in 1994, I was one of the many that heard whispers on the grapevine that a few of his books were back in circulation.
Fucking Jürgen
I never
Leitner.
thought I'd actually get my hands on one, though. Not until I heard about Kirsten's death.
Who the fuck is
Kirsten
Kirsten?
Bauman was a book dealer friend of mine down in Salisbury.
Okay, thanks for telling
I
me.
suppose you could call her a rival in some ways, but we'd always been very friendly. In fact, there were a few years back in the 80s when we were very friendly indeed, but we hadn't spoken much in the last year or two.
They were fucking.
Well, in January of this year, she passed away.
Rip.
Lost balance on the stairs and broke her neck. To be honest, I wasn't as surprised by her death as I might have been, though it was rather alarming. Over the last few years, the landscape of the UK rare books trade has changed significantly. A lot of the big names in the old guard have gone missing or retired, or sometimes even been found dead.
Ooh.
The police even got involved for a while, as there was talk of maybe someone out there targeting booksellers. But they never found anything to indicate it was
Fuck would target booksellers.
anything other than a coincidence. I suppose it's just an example of how one generation inevitably makes way for the next, but Kirsten was the first time it had affected someone I knew well.
Mm.
What surprised me more than her death, however, was that she had made me her literary executor and left me the vast majority of her stock.
Well, that's
So
very
it was
kind
I
of her.
came into the possession of a lightener. It was a strange one, all right. Exaltiora, or From the Heights, was the name. It was custom bound in the late 1800s from what I could see, though the pages looked to be significantly old.
Given I've still got the transcript from the one before, I'm just gonna have a quick look. Yep. It's the same fucking book. Yep. Yes. I do miss a good skin book. It's been a long time since we've dealt with skin. Lovely. Oh, don't. If you describe that the leather is soft, I'm going to throw hands.
Than that, 17th century, I would have said. It was written in Latin and seemed to be a long poem in the style of Virgil, illustrated with some quite striking woodcuts. It told the tale of a small, unnamed town high on a cliff top that sees a monstrous creature begin to approach. The poem is unclear whether it is a beast, a demon, or a god, as it uses the words interchangeably. But it is seen far off, its head and body lost among the clouds. The majority of the story details the villagers' attempts to prepare to do battle against this creature. But each time they devise a countermeasure, the thing gets closer and is shown to be far larger than previously suspected, rendering their preparations insignificant. At last, when it is almost upon them, its impossible vastness undeniable, the villagers surrender to despair and hurl themselves from the cliff top onto the rocks far below.
Oh, that's nice.
It was a strange book.
Yeah, sounds it.
Made all the stranger by the fact that it appeared to be utterly unique. I could find no record of it in any catalogue I had available, and after a few calls to a couple of museums and archives I knew dealt with similar texts, I was convinced that this may well have been a completely unique book. This didn't please me as much as you might imagine, because what it meant was that I had an artifact on my hands, one that belonged far more in a museum than it did in a library. I'd only had a museum-worthy book come once before, and the process of authentication and the work involved in selling it had quite frankly not been worth the amount that I sold it for. Museums are not as well funded as private collectors.
I bet.
Beyond that, there was something about the book itself that unsettled me. Reading it was disorientating, in a way that I can't easily put into words. Especially the woodcuts, although they were just the village or the cliffs or empty forests or mountains. They were quite crude in many ways, but certainly not unsettling. And yet twice when reading it and observing the woodcuts, I fell off my chair. Over the week I possessed it, I had enough dizzy spells that I had to book an appointment with my doctor, although at the time I didn't make any direct connection between them and the book.
I mean, why the fuck
I
would
had
you?
bad dreams as well.
Oh, great.
I don't recall them with any clarity, but I'm rather sure they were dreams of falling.
I bet they were.
Mike came in at the end of that week. I wouldn't go so far as to say I was expecting him, but I put a half dozen books to one side for his consideration, as I assumed he'd be in at some point soon. As was his habit, he said almost nothing, and the cold February air was enough that he didn't even feel the need to remove his scarf, so only the faintest hints of that branching scar could be seen creeping out from below it.
Lightning.
The bulbs crackled and brightened in his presence, and I presented the books I had chosen to
Oh,
him.
it's back.
He spent some minutes looking through them before pushing them back with a shake of the head. This was not unusual for him.
You must be
I
able
took
to
it as
hear
no
that.
insult. I turned to put them
So
back on the
unpleasant.
shelf when I was almost overcome by a wave of dizziness. I gripped the back of my chair and steadied myself. When I looked back at Mike, he was staring at the Leitner book with a wild expression I had never seen on his face before. He pointed at Ex Altiora and asked me how much it was. I started to tell him it wasn't for sale, but he had this look in his eyes.
I'm getting
this
that fucking
furious
book.
desperation. It
Okay.
scared me, to be
Fucking book,
honest,
mate.
and I had a sudden sense that this man was willing to kill me for that book. All this, combined with the discomfort I felt with the thing anyway, was just a bit too much for me. I named a figure that I thought was maybe double what it was actually worth, and Mike wrote me out a check so fast that I thought his pen would go clean through the paper. For this, I
I really want
insisted on
whistling
ringing
to
him up a
stop.
receipt, and without another word, he was out into the rainy February afternoon.
I can't deal with
And
this
that would have been
whistling.
it. Given what happened next, I don't think I would ever
Oh,
have seen
thank
Michael
God.
Crewe again if it wasn't for the simple fact that his check bounced. I didn't quite believe it at first. He'd always been so willing to drop huge amounts of money on books that the idea of him not being able to afford something had never quite registered. But there was no mistake. After no small amount of consideration, I decided that the only decent thing to do was to actually go to him and discuss the matter. Maybe I could get the book back. Maybe I could make alternate arrangements. Either way, I felt like I owed it to Mike. I had his address on file from a delivery he had requested a couple of months back, so it was a simple matter to close up the shop early and make the short walk across Chichester to his flat. Rather lavish by student standards, but easy enough to find. The sky was a bruised grey as I walked across town, and I was glad I had thought to bring my umbrella, as it was promising to be a storm. I recognized the smell from Mike's previous visits, though even then I didn't realize what it meant. I reached his door and knocked. I was careful to be firm, but not aggressive, in my knocking, as I had an odd conviction that an overly confrontational knock would have made it much harder to retrieve the book. I needn't have given it any thought at all. The door opened before I'd even finished knocking, and I had the oddest feeling in my stomach, as though I was standing on the edge of a great drop,
Oh, God.
and I took an instinctive step back. Mike stood there, looking terrible. From inside came the odor of a man who has not left the room or opened a window for some days.
Oh, great.
Strewn across the floor were pages and pages of scrawled Latin text, which alarmed me until I saw the unharmed and whole book clutched in his arms. I started to explain what had happened and why I was there, but he didn't seem to be registering my words, just staring blankly at the space I occupied as though he didn't notice I was standing there.
That's so weird.
I remember I had just about reached the point of repeating the word check over and over in the hopes he acknowledged it, when the first droplets of rain began to hit his window. Without warning, Mike's eyes went wide in what might have been realization or maybe just fear, and his face got so pale his branching scar seemed almost to vanish. Then the first peal of thunder rolled over us, and that smell hit me with such an intensity I could barely breathe. I was on the floor before I knew what was happening and turned to see Mike running full pelt down the corridor, clutching the Leitner book. I must have hit my head, and my thinking was very muddled, but I was convinced he was trying to escape with the book. With a determination that, quite frankly, I never would have expected from myself, I decided that I had to stop it. I had to stop Michael Crewe from stealing my Leitner. So I got up, umbrella forgotten, and chased him out into the pouring rain.
He
We
left.
weaved our way through Chichester, lightning arcing through the sky in a way I'd only seen a handful of times in the 40 years I lived there. I could just about make out the fleeing figure of Mike in front of me, and sometimes, when the lightning lit the sky, I could have sworn I saw someone else chasing him. It was hard to make out, as it only seems to appear for those momentary flashes, but it seemed tall, thin, its limbs angular and branching, like Mike's scar. I don't know how he got into the
kind
bell
of
tower
lightning
for
was he
Chichester
struck with?
Cathedral. It stands separate from the main building, tall, imposing and square, starkly illuminated by the flashing sky. One of the doors at the base stood open, and I didn't stop to think how it had been opened before dashing inside and starting up the stairs. The smell was so thick inside, I gagged on the acrid stench. In my determination to chase a young man stealing a book, I had apparently completely forgotten my age, which returned all at once, and I collapsed slightly on the stairs.
Oh.
I began to climb then, slowly, towards the top of the bell tower. I have never been afraid of heights, but as I got higher and higher up those stairs, my head started to swim and my heart was beating so fast I was honestly worried that I was in danger of a heart attack. Finally, I reached the top flight of stairs. I could hear shouting from the bell room. It was Mike. He was screaming something that sounded like a chant or a prayer. Most of it was in languages I didn't know, but I could make out the words Altiora, Vertigo, and the Vast. I reached the top, and there I saw Mike standing before an open window.
Is he trying to summon?
He held the book before him like a protective ward, and in front of him was a strange, branching figure. It crackled and fizzed, lit by a strobing white light as though the lightning was within the room itself. It was just standing there like it couldn't approach, as Mike reached the crescendo of his invocation, and with a cry of, "I am yours," he leapt through the open window, and presumably to his death. The strange figure cried out, a sound like tearing sandpaper, and seemed to be dragged through the window with him. The sharp smell vanished instantly, and I was alone in the dark. I say presumably about his jumping almost 100 feet to his death, because when I went out, I could find no body at the base of the tower,
But of
and neither
course.
could the police, who obviously treated me like a lunatic. When the sky cleared shortly afterwards, it became apparent that all the windows to the bell chamber were closed and sealed. I never saw Michael Crew or the Lightner book again. Statement ends. Michael Crew, another name that seems to crop up more than once in relation to Lightners, and twice regarding this particular volume. The events here seem to have taken place a couple of years after those of Statement 9991006. Could his exposure to the Bone Turner's tale have catalyzed an interest in Jürgen Lightner? Or perhaps an early experiment?
Wait, hang on.
It seemed...
Bone Turner? The fuck did Michael have to do with Bone Turner? Oh, fuck's sake. More research. God damn it. What's his fucking name? Michael. Oh my god. He was the one who returned the book. Oh, fucking hell. Oh. Michael, get your act together. What the fuck? Oh, repeating names. I think this goes in the repeating names section. Michael Crew. And then I'm going to put a little, like a dot, 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 towards Jürgen Lightner. Like that. Because they are linked somehow. Oh, Michael. What bullshit have you got yourself into, mate?
Seems as though he was attempting to use the book as protection against whatever was chasing him. Did the Bone Turner's tale not work in that regard? And what was it that chased him, bringing that smell with it? It is a shame that Ex Altiora was burned in the end. I would have been fascinated to read it. Especially as there is one feature that I'm surprised Mr. Knox did not mention, comparing his statement to that of Dominic Swain in 0132806. The book Mr. Knox received did not seem to have a woodcut of the dark night sky with the branching, arching design of the Lichtenberg figure. End recording.
Hang on. Before... What the fuck is a woodcut? What is a wood... Book woodcut. What is that? What is that? Explain to me. Book woodcut, yes. Explain to me about woodcuts are illustrations printed by carving away areas from a block of wood, leaving the area standing in relief to print when the block is inked. Ah? Woodcuts are illustrations printed by carving away areas from a block of wood. So, printing. Leaving the areas standing in relief to print when the block is inked. So, a print, essentially. So, book makes Mr. Knox. Yeah, okay, so 2806 refers to the page refers to page turner. I don't. There are several black and white illustrations, woodcuts, I think, each showing a mountain or a cliff, or in one picture appeared to be an empty night sky. I felt an odd sensation when looking at the image. Even though as simple as it was, I felt like I was about to fall into it. So I thought that was the endless sky that was in the Free Faller, but I don't think it was. The woodcuts were starker somehow, and in the background of each there were new lines, thick and dark, stretching down from the sky. Then I came to the picture of that empty night, but now it had a stark, branching pattern carving through it, a pattern I recognized. And then later he explains it is known as the Lichtenberg figure. It shows the diverging paths of electricity on an insulating material such as glass or resin. I knew it from the scars on the back of my childhood friend who had been struck by lightning because of me. His name was Michael Crew. Holy shit. Okay. before we get into Jonathan's insanity rambles, as much as I enjoy them, I want to make sure I fully understand this. So, fortunately, I have spare paper that I'm going to use for this. So Knox, who is the guy who wrote this statement, correct? Yes. So Knox wrote this statement in 1998. So 1998, Knox. No wood cut with Lichtenberg. Okay. Then and then 1999 Crew has read the Bone Turner's Tale. Oh, and also Crew jumped out window. Okay. I figured it out. The figure, the Lichtenberg figure that is now seen in the empty sky painting is the figure that was chasing him. Right? That would make sense. And then 2012. Who has the book? Swain has book now with Lichtenberg figure. Jared Key Burns book. That's the timeline that I have. So what were Jonathan's statements? Michael Crew, another name that seems to crop up more than once in relation to Leitner's and twice regarding this particular volume. The events here seem to have taken place a couple years after the statement. Wait, what? Oh, fuck off. Please. Okay, there we go. No, the book was in his possession. Why won't you work? Stupid page. Yeah, the page decided to break. There we go. I used to work at Chiswick Library. Oh, it was 3 years ago when this happened. So 3 years ago from 1999. Oh, so actually, no. I tell a fucking lie. Hang on. We've got some real scrapbook action going on here. So the way it actually goes is like this. Okay, hang on. So Crew has read the Bone Turner's Tale. So oh dear. So this is actually the order. So Crew has read the Bone Turner's Tale. He then gives it into the library. So I get what Jonathan means now by it must not have worked. And then he finds another Leitner book. And the book disappears and then somehow ends up in a charity shop in 2012. Fucking crazy, bro. Damn. All right, Jonathan, tell me your crazy rambles. I'm here for you, babes. Could his exposure to the Bone Turner's Tale have catalyzed an interest in Jürgen Leitner? Or perhaps an early experiment? It seems as though he was attempting to use the book as protection against whatever was chasing him. Did the Bone Turner's Tale not work in that regard? And what was it that chased him, bringing that smell with it? It's a shame Ex Altiora was burned in the end. I would have been fascinated to read it. Honestly, I think you're better off having not read it, Jonathan. Your sanity is already hanging on by a thread. You don't need any more reasons, okay? The book Mr. Knox received did not seem to have a woodcut of the dark night sky with the arching design of the Lichtenberg figure. Oh, so they're not woodcuts. They're like moments, because it was night, wasn't it? Is that what he said? He said it was like a clear night. The sky was a bruised grey as I walked across The town. Oh, so it doesn't really say whether or not the night was clear. All right.
Supplemental. Someone else has been going down into the tunnels. When I came in yesterday, I noticed that the trapdoor appeared to have been disturbed. It was unlocked. I confronted the others, but they all deny it, of course. Someone must think there is more down there of value, unless they're trying to hide something. Searching or hiding, it could be either. I might try to set up a camera to watch the trapdoor, if I can find somewhere effective to hide it. I did go down there to see if I could find anything, but it seems much as it did last time. The only difference now is all the spider webs. They seem to have spread down there. I think I saw some of the larger specimens actually eating the remains of the worms. It was a disconcerting sight, and I left almost immediately. End supplemental.
What is it with the fucking spiders? Ah! The fucking spiders, bro. Oh. I knew the spiders were going to come up. I knew the spiders were going to come up. They are the reason that they caught the worms early enough that they didn't get fucked. And the spiders also seem to be part of the reason why they were prepared for the fire alarm or something. Also, does the others include Elias? I'm not overly suspicious of him or anything. Definitely not. I know nothing. I remember nothing. I am a void of knowledge. There is nothing. There is no knowledge in my brain hole. My little devil horns. God, I'm actually hungry now. These two episodes have made me think so bloody hard. Also, the tape, because of the way this paper is, the tape is like the glue that I used is so not going to last. It's already like peeling off because the way the glue works is it lays down like a little line of like sticky stuff that's sticky on both sides, so it sticks to the both things. But obviously, as I was rolling it, it was pulling up like the fiber of the page, so which, you know, inevitably causes issues. So I have to be very careful when laying it down. Otherwise, I end up ripping the whole page up like I did with the bottom one, because the bottom one I got a bit too excited. And as a consequence, the bottom bit is kind of falling off, which is totally fine. Totally fine. Anyway, yeah, that's my timeline. So clearly, whatever he did with the thing worked, and that must have been why he could smell that smell whenever with the book, you know, and why it reminded him of his friend who got struck by lightning, because the smell was also there when he got struck by lightning. What I'm curious about, though, is that smell typically associated with lightning? Or is it not, and he's just never met anyone else who's been struck by lightning, so can't confirm? The ozone smell is how he described it. He described it as an ozone smell, didn't he? My little notebook's really coming along quite nicely, isn't it? I kind of hate that I've chosen to do it in this one because, well, it's tiny and it's hard to write on the pages, but it's fine. It's aesthetic, and that's what really matters at the end of the day. Also, I wonder, like, I understand that obviously the fears don't like technology, but at what point did they decide that they don't like technology? Because technically a tape recorder is technology. It's just utilizes non-digital. So is it digital that it doesn't like? So, like, because I'm just wondering if I'm wondering if Jonathan could get a slightly newer tape recorder that's slightly better, but still be within the realm of being permitted by the fears. I'm just curious, honestly. Okay, well, I did 2.5 hours of work today. So I got to watch 2 episodes, which is exciting. Tomorrow, I will try and do more, I guess. And I can try on some more gauges. Oh yeah, this is the septum I put in. It's little spikes, which I think is quite cute. Yeah, I got my little devil horns going on. Can you see them? I mean, look, if I put my hair down, that's quite a lot of hair for the amount of actual scalp that's got hair on it. Part of the reason it's flat is because my hair just falls very flat. It's not got any volume to it. Like, the hair itself is thick, but it's just very flat because it's very silky. I have silky hair. Oh, I'm tired and I want to listen to more, but I haven't earned it. I'm sad. And it's too late to earn anymore. I should probably go eat dinner. I haven't eaten dinner yet. My life is a nightmare. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will see you tomorrow, assuming I'm able to get at least an hour of work done. The fact that I like these streams being at least two episodes long definitely helps with pressuring me to do work. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know how long I can hold out with not looking at like fan art and fan fiction, because I really like these characters and I want to consume them. I want like a 5-course meal, you know. So, but every time I low-key spoil shit for myself. But the thing is that obviously there is fan art and fan fiction, which is just like funny ideas. And it's like, that's what I want. And I wish there was a way to tell the internet anything that is actually relevant, hide. But there's not. That's not possible. I mean, it probably could be if I looked hard enough. And honestly, at this point, I might have to before I explode. But yeah, I'm going to go make food because I'm starving. Okie dokie. Goodbye.